Welcome back to Making Tracks with me, Nkongo. Over the past few years, the Blue Line Extension project has been engaged in a corresponding stage of development we call the design process. But what does design mean for the light rail development? To break down the meaning and purpose of the design process on the Blue Line Extension project, I spoke with Kronzer, the Assistant Director of Design and Engineering on the Blue Line Extension project. So hey Ryan, how are you doing today?
Doing great, Nkongo. How are you?
Pretty good. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm an architect. I work at Metro Transit. I've worked here for 13 years. I started on the Green Line Extension project where I met you, and now I'm working on the Blue Line Extension project. So I'm the Assistant Director of Design and Engineering, which means I guide the design process, work with consultants, work with stakeholders, work with city partners on designing this project.
In general terms, what's the design process?
I like to think of the design process as a funnel where you start with a lot of opportunity, a lot of ideas, and you come down to that end result that's this physical thing. It starts with an idea. It's like, what's our goal? What's our idea? And this project was extending light rail. So we had to figure out where's our starting point, where's our end point, how do we want to serve the community? As you're well aware, we spend a lot of time out in the community asking for input and feedback. Then we think about how stations could be fit into that context, where tracks can fit. So it's this constant evolution of what the idea is, what the community is telling us, and making things more real as we go on.
How much design is right and at what time? And how do you know that you have the right amount of design for this specific element?
Yeah, well, our project is set up, and most design projects are set up having benchmarks. 30% benchmark, 60% benchmark, 100% benchmarks. At those steps, there's only so much design complete for 30. And we take that pause, we evaluate where we're at, and then we move forward. So we're never getting to 100% design in the first year of anything. We always take that step, we review, we take feedback, we make adjustments as we need, then we advance design. So every benchmark, we build upon those decisions made, and we make more and more detailed designs based on those steps.
Can you tell me a little bit about the role that the public plays in the design process?
The public is important along every step of the project. In fact, we're here to serve the public. So the public input is very important. I was talking about that funnel, the design process is that funnel. When you start a project, there's much more impact and input the public can give us to help us make decisions along the way. As we go down and down and down that funnel, it's harder to make big changes to a project. So things like moving a station after that point or adding big elements are really quite difficult. So it's really important for the community to get involved very early on in a public project. There's lots of forums that we have, but all of our public projects that I'm aware of, there is a role for the public, and that starts very early on in the project.
What constraints does the design team come up against when you design certain elements? Let's say designing a station.
With a light rail system, we have tracks on two sides of a station. Stations just don't fit everywhere. As we've established an alignment and we look for station locations where we have that space to have a wider track, a wider guideway. If there's a suggestion to move a station later in a project where some of these decisions have already been made, it just might physically not fit. We work with the community as best we can to find what the right solution is.
Give me an example.
The Lowry Avenue station that we've been working through, we heard a lot of feedback about that particular station. One of the major concerns people had, including the Park and Recreation Board, City of Minneapolis, City of Robbinsdale, and North Memorial Hospital, was we had a design that has light rail tracks crossing two streets, which then had gated crossings. There's a lot of concern about how light rail would cross the parkway with those gated crossings, and also how a road to the hospital would have that gated crossing. So we listened to the feedback, we understood what their concerns were. I took a step back and said, okay, how can we modify our designs, adjust our designs for the station that both can meet the needs of the light rail program and customer, and not have those great concerns. So we spent some time, we developed many different options, and we came up with an option that had light rail not crossing those streets at grade, while keeping a station at grade with avoiding elevators and stairs and those kinds of things. So it was a long back and forth. We understood what the stakeholders' concerns were, and we went back to the drawing board, so to speak, and tried to develop solutions that didn't require those grade crossings.
And then what would be the next step, right? So you leave 60%, incorporate additional design elements and input from the community. What's the next design step?
So the next design step after 60 is really getting the project ready for bidding. We take that 60% input, we bring in those details and feedback from the community, and we're off to the races to get the project ready for bidding. So it's a lot of detail. It's lining up all the permits we need from the different stakeholders, getting all the details, the heights of every maintenance hole, every grate throughout the project gets detailed out to hand it off to a contractor to build it for us.
Is there any room for additional community input as you advance?
Absolutely. So we just started a process with cultural placekeeping, which is the process that's going to have the project work with community members to help keep that culture that's existing within the corridor. How that gets realized in our project is visual elements on stations and near stations. So we've just started that process. So we'll start to see the detailing and evolution of these stations this year.
Can you tell us a little bit about the connection between the design process and the environmental process?
So it's a back and forth. The environmental team will come to the design team and say, hey, what's going on here? Why is this the way it is? Recently we reduced some impacts to a couple of homes along the alignment because the environmental team said, we don't really see how you need to be here, and we took a sharper look. We sharpened our pencils, and we said, yeah, we could change a few things and reduce that impact. So it's a constant back and forth between the two processes.
Do you collaborate with other project partners on the design?
The Blue Line extension goes through 4 cities and 1 county. It also goes through 2 watersheds and 2 park districts. So we are constantly in communication with those folks. In fact, we have a structured process to include those folks and those agencies in our design input, design review process. With the cities, the 4 cities, we have been meeting weekly or bi-weekly with them for years. Same with Hennepin County. Hennepin County is a local funding partner, a major supporter of this project. We have close relationships to their engineers within the project office.
So is there anything that you think the public would be really surprised to know about?
Yeah, one thing I do tell folks at some open houses once in a while is we have engineers and architects, landscape architects here sitting physically in St. Louis Park at our project office. There are hundreds of people across the country working on this project. Our design consultants have offices nationally, a lot of them. So there are folks in Portland and Seattle and Atlanta and North Carolina all working on this project. So they feed that into the locals here, but there are people all over the country working on this project.
Wow, that's exciting.
It is exciting.
Ryan, thank you so much for joining us. This was a great conversation.
Oh, thank you. Anytime, Nkongo.
All right, if you have any additional questions, do not hesitate to reach out to your outreach coordinator, or if you'd like to learn more about design, about the project in general, visit the links below and leave your comment. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.